Welcome to the market recap presented by Tackle Trading. Get in the game.
Good afternoon, Tackle Traders, and hello, YouTube. This is Frank coming to you with the market recap. What's up, Adam? How are you, my friend? We are hanging out on a Tuesday. I wanted to say Wednesday, but it is Tuesday, whether I'm ready for it to be or not. Maybe I'm from the future. We saw some movement today. Nothing super dramatic, but we did see the S&P finally, push through that 2600 and close above that. We saw the NASDAQ break and close above its 50-period moving average. So little more bullish activity here as we're finally seeing some movement, not as much as I would have liked to see personally to give clean signals. It's close, probably a lot of it will depend on your rules, but I do think we can take from it that, hey, the bulls are still very much live right now, and that hasn't stopped just yet. Interesting day in the market. You had a couple big earnings movers. FRC broke out on earnings. UNH broke out on earnings. You saw PCG, flop again. Not as much as yesterday. It was 52% yesterday. And hello, Patricia, and hello, everybody. I hope you had a great day and a great day trading. You saw PCG, continue its slide into wherever it's going. So Goodyear Tire came out, a little bit of downgrading on guidance and really sold off into some support very heavily. So we saw some interesting movements here today. Pretty light on the earnings front tonight. We have UAL coming out after the market close. I didn't have a chance to see what their earnings were. They were trading up post-market, but I hadn't seen the report. Big day for the financials tomorrow before the market opens. You've got yourselves, a U.S. bank. You've got yourself Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, BlackRock, Bank of New York. So big day for the financials who are getting closer and closer to that level of resistance on their ETF that we've been keeping an eye on the last little while. Pretty strong day for the most part, pushed up early, did see a little bit of pullback on the intraday, but we did rally and close near the highs of the day as a general rule. As we look at the S&P on the 15-minute chart, moving into a daily time frame, closing at 2610, clearly above that 26. It is an area, right? And again, I would like to be sold that it was a clean break. I don't dislike it, but I don't think it is a clean break either personally. I'll be keeping an eye on that 50 kind of as the next area to challenge us once we can get back in this range. And again, maybe depending on your individual rules, you might say that we're there already. One great thing about it is there's room to work to the upside still, right? In the relatively short term, if we can cleanly break out on our indexes. Step one is you got to break above it, whether how much it is, right? It's just one day, it's just 10 points above it, but it's more than we've seen the last week as we've been fighting and closing right below that 26, right? So, keep an eye on how we, act over here. That 50 might be a little bit of something to, keep an eye on if we can work into it as we kind of work through the rest of this week. Tech had a good, strong day. NASDAQ did, of course, as well, breaking and closing just above their 50-period moving average. So again, another positive signal. Right. If you always think in terms of, steps, that's how I always, like to think, step one, break above the 9. Step 2, break resistance, break other moving averages, break other levels, or flip it around the other way, right? From a bearish point of view, little more upward movement again, and, clearly taking out that round number that we've been working with here today. So I think you have to call the movement that we saw today another bullish signal overall, personally. Over in the Dow, taking out and closing cleanly above 24,000 as well. Little more room to go, probably into the 24.4 range before we start to work into those old floors and that 50-period moving average. So it looks like there's still a little room over there. That's what's really interesting about the way it's developing. If we are able to continue this bullish momentum, there's room in a lot of things. Yeah, they've got to deal with multiple levels of resistance and all those challenges, but it's always easier to beat the next one, right? The first one's always hardest. The second one is a little tougher than the third, and so on and so forth. Over on the Russell, still cleanly below their breakdown point. They did rally with the whole market here today, but still are clearly below that floor and that 50-period moving average. In my mind, we have to get above that before we can look at these guys from a bullish point of view. Should be a tough fight. It certainly has been over the last week. Very interesting movement. Starting to see some things breaking out a little bit as we're seeing these indexes take out some areas. Whether they're big deals or not, they certainly have been roadblocks in the short term for us, right? We spent the better part of a week complaining that the market wouldn't do anything. So getting a little bit of movement through those areas, definitely a nice sight to see from a bullish perspective. Obviously don't want to go too crazy. We never want to go crazy, but I do think, for me at least, this is, we have to look at this as another bullish signal. Right? It doesn't mean I can't do anything or won't do anything bearish, but just along the way, we're just seeing things that are making, us, or making myself at least, a little less bearish on a regular basis, and certainly breaking resistance will do that for me. Over in the world of the sectors, we did see some downward movement on the material sector, closing really close to this. We're not really paying a super amount of attention to this little short-term trend line, but it's something we can kind of keep an eye on, just give us a general idea, kind of doging right at that 9 EMA. Not a strong day. We had a lot of nice, movement across the market, and materials, for whatever reason, weren't able to get in on the action. Now, I don't really think it's a huge deal. This, this old support level is kind of the, and which of course was a recent breakout point, is kind of the, the area where I'm looking at support to form. But definitely worth noting that in a day of positivity, the material sector had a hard time getting on board with that today for whatever reason. Over in energy, a doji, again, some of our areas kind of continued, if they'd already broke or were able to break out. Energy dojied right at that support level. Did see a little upward movement on the gap on the open, but really not a whole lot to see as the day progressed. Really kind of flat day, dojing right at that resistance level. I still think that from a risk to reward point of view, the energy sector is one of the more interesting bearish areas from a retracement point of view. If that's, where if we start to see some selling and those patterns hold in those stocks, because there is, a lot of room between resistance, here at 62 and support down here at 54. Not that I would expect it to work all the way back down there necessarily if we start to see some sell signals, which we've not yet. We're just hanging out still, right? But I do think from a risk to reward point of view, this is an area, if those bearish trades, do start to develop, can be an area I think I will be a little more interested in than maybe the average sector. For right or wrong, we'll see. So our friends in the financial, as they're always, the first week of earnings is always big financial week. You get the big banks and Citigroup and JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs. We're pretty close. We've been kind of watching this space, and one of the reasons I've liked the financial sector maybe a little bit more than some other traders I've been talking to lately is because of that room that we had from that 24 break into our 25 approximately floor. We're about there. So we're about to start running into some resistance levels, both on the ETF level and on the individual stock level. Got a lot of, as a lot of banks are coming out with earnings tomorrow. Should be interesting. If we can, carry on good momentum, maybe we can break that and give us a little more. If those numbers, aren't all that impressive to investors, seems like a good place to start taking profits on stocks that maybe weren't impacted by the poor earning, hypothetically speaking, poor earnings. So should be interesting to see these guys in action here tomorrow. Definitely things going on the earnings front that can move this sector going into tomorrow morning, no doubt about that. We'll let you guys kind of know pre-market what we're kind of seeing over on our Twitter if we have a chance. So I always like to do that. I wake up way too early on earnings during earnings season so I can see who's moving in the pre-market. So industrials, much like energy, just kind of hanging at that resistance level. Wasn't able to really catch any of the movement that we were seeing in the market today. Didn't do anything wrong, just didn't do anything right, right? So not a whole lot of movement. This, was an area that was a, pretty big breakdown point. We have that 50 kind of sitting just right above us. So, it makes kind of sense. I've kind of brought it up before. I don't love this area in the short term from that bullish point of view, just because of all of that overhead. But if we were able to, if we do continue this bullish break in the market, could be an area that if we do take out that floor, that old floor, and that 50-period moving average, could be a little bit of room for us to work with, I think, in the industrial sector. Tech, good day, really solid days over in tech, communication services, those companies in those two sectors, share a lot of similarities, I think. We did see that, of course, the NASDAQ break and close above the 50, which is certainly not a bad sign, right? Not a bearish signal. We're able to see that nice upward movement here in the tech sector as well. One thing I personally really like about the sector, we've talked about it, over the last couple of days while we've been waiting to see if it wanted to break, is there's still some room. Before we start to run into what I consider major challenges and resistance in the tech sector. We do want to keep an eye on that falling 50, on that trend line if and when we get there. But realistically speaking, if we can hold, this momentum at all, I don't really see any reason why we're not going to be challenging that. I won't assume it's going to break, but I would expect with just any, bullish momentum, working into that trend line shouldn't be too difficult of a task. And that's at least how I will be going about the rest of the week with the tech sector. Personally, while not been my favorite area, the staples also had a pretty respectable day here today, working up and closing right below that old floor. Like I've said many times, I think that is an area very much worth watching. If we can break above that, I would definitely consider that a bullish signal. But in my mind, it has to break above that before I am comfortable looking at this sector as a bull. And that really has not changed. But solid movement. We are, seeing those same patterns of higher highs and higher lows. We have broke above the 9. We have turned that falling 9 into a rising 9, closed above the 20. If we can take this resistance level out, maybe there's a little bit of room for us to go in this sector. So I could see myself really liking this sector on Friday and not wanting anything to do with it on Wednesday, if it's able to break that resistance at least. But a solid day, my opinion notwithstanding, definitely a good day for the staple sector. Another solid day for the utility sector, bouncing back off of that support yesterday. These guys, to me, are you just leave them alone right now. They're, clearly in one of their utility sideways situations. It's moving a lot, but it's going nowhere, right? Got the PCG stuff that's always, potentially dragging it down on the day. A lot of those, charts don't look all that great in the short term, at least to me. I still think the best way to look at this is call it sideways until we come out of this trading range. I'll probably say that every single day until it breaks out one way or the other. And so, but we did see some nice bullish movement after testing that low here on the intraday yesterday. So again, to me, it just says, yeah, folks are still fairly neutral on this thing. They're willing to sell it, but they're also willing to hop in off of support and try to work back into that, that higher end of the trading range that they are working with. If and when they do break, definitely would be interested as a bull. I will, of course, be keeping an eye on this trend line. If that happens, I will expect that to be a challenge personally, but there is some room. If we can break to the upside, there is some room. And if we can break to the downside, and then sooner or later we're going to, hopefully it's a little easier to trade than our last breakout to the upside back, last fall, early winter. There's room to the downside too. So I'm just going to be patient. I'm going to let it do what it needs to do in this range for however long it wants to. Sooner or later it will break, and I think that will be a signal that we can potentially work with. Right now, that's just not my cup of tea, at least. Over in healthcare, good solid day across the board in healthcare. You had UNH, of course, a big name in that area, come out with earnings today before the market opened, beat and ultimately took out that swing high. And we talked about this last earnings, but this is one of my favorite situations to develop in earnings season, is when you have a stock that, and it can work either way. But since we're looking at UNH, talk about it from a bullish point of view, where it has a very clear identifiable resistance zone. And then it comes out with earnings that break through that resistance zone. So you have that little breakout on earnings. That is one of my favorite things during earnings season for short-term price action. It was a little back and forth, early on in the trading day, broke out very early, kind of came back for the next little while. But these breaks, when things are breaking resistance, to me, that's always a buy signal. Whether I want to buy or not is the question. When we're breaking through resistance on positive news, in this particular case, an earnings beat, that is one of my favorite short-term trading signals during earnings season. I'm always looking for it, and don't find it all the time. Things have to line up. It has to have the report that either goes and breaks support or break resistance that lines up with that, and you have to find it. And not so hard on a day like today where there weren't a ton of earnings. Next week is going to be a little trickier, but I'll be looking nonetheless. So a good solid day across the board in healthcare. We got a little more room. We do probably want to keep an eye on this old support level up here in the 89 range, but we have a little bit of room before we get to that point. So again, much like everything else, just kind of drifting, with the market, been hanging out, trying to figure out what it wants to do, seeing some breaks. So certain areas, energy, industrials, not breaking out with the market. A lot of our other sectors were able to take part of that. We did close, depending on where your trend line is, and potentially above this downward trend line over in the discretionary sector. I think the easiest way to go about anything like this is to just wait and make sure it can break that swing high. Right? Because depending on where my line is, I noticed that in the halftime report, Matt has a different line on his communication services, ETF than I do. They're not terribly far off, but those little things can definitely impact, how you're looking at things. Whenever I see this, let's just break this resistance level. Then I can say, yeah, we did take out this trend line. More, equally as importantly, we took out the previous swing high. That would be a little break anyway, but definitely some strength over there today in the discretionary sector as well. Challenging, at the very least, I think we can say we're challenging that downward trend line. And what's up, Boost? Good to see you, my friend. Hope you had a good day trading. And yeah, I'm not avoicing the computer today. I just had to restart my computer, and then it just, it worked. I don't know what it was. So I never know what it is. Over in the real estate, we did deal with that short-term resistance yesterday, pushing through it early on the trading day today and continuing that bullish momentum, breaking through about half hour into the market day. There's room. I still don't love this area because some of these charts are just so unappealing to me technically. But that aside, really, we've got some room until we work kind of back into this old, 3250-ish range, which again isn't a lot dollar-wise on the ETF, but there is some space, on individual stocks over in the real estate sector. Still don't love it. I still like other areas, that are showing similar signals better, but doesn't mean I'm right to like them better. It just means I do. So, but again, we've created that higher low, that higher high. We've crossed above the 9. Got the rising 9 working with us. Just took out a little bit of a short-term floor that was intraday resistance, if nothing else, for us here yesterday. Do have to deal with these flat moving averages, and maybe that's one reason why I don't like it. I don't like things in the way. And while I don't think flat moving averages are as likely to act as key levels of support or resistance, or at least catalysts for support and resistance, as much as trending moving averages, I still see them there, and I don't like them. And I think that probably is one reason why I don't like the real estate sector as much as maybe some other areas. I still see them as challenges, even though in my head, I believe that they're not as big of challenges when they're flat. I still see them as challenges. So if that makes any sense, I don't know if it does, but I think that's what I'm going with. But another strong day over there, and certainly seeing some short-term buy signals continuing to develop in the real estate sector, regardless of my weirdness. Over in communication services, we've been hanging out on that 50 for a week now. We're able to break through. We are approaching that trend line. And again, it's probably going to depend on exactly where you have it. I'm not sold just yet, but I'm not opposed to it. We talked a little bit about it yesterday. We're seeing things within this sector break out, show some very nice signals. You're seeing, your Facebook, it obviously broke out here today. maybe even arguably yesterday, depending on your rules. We're seeing, we saw that pullback on Google, nice upward movement. We're not necessarily out of the woods yet on these things, but we are seeing shifting signals, right? We are seeing, things break some resistance, which has just not been the norm as of late for stocks within this area. So some of these stocks are still looking fairly interesting. For me, I'm going to play it like a wimp because that's what I do. I'm not sold just yet. I get it though. I'm not necessarily opposed to people taking, looking at this from a bullish point of view. I'm not ready to go there personally just yet though. I don't think it's clearly broken trend yet in my estimation, and I would want to see that happen at least across the board. But I can see that buy signal on Facebook, and I wouldn't have anyone object to people trading setups like that. I really wouldn't. There's better things in my opinion. And again, that's all we have to go off of, right? Can't trade everything. Not going to buy everything bullish because the market finally broke 2,600, but I might be, looking for some bull plays, and I'm going to be, of course, picky and hope I'm doing the right thing. But there's a lot of buy signals out in the market right now. There's no doubt about it. We still have lots of challenges. I don't think it's wise to assume that, we're done selling, but we have definitely seen a change in attitude where, the last week or much of the last week, hanging out at resistance. We wouldn't have saw that 2 weeks ago, right? When the market was looking for any reason to sell, breaking some resistance after hanging out and putting up a good fight. We're definitely seeing some faith from the bulls right now, and that is something I do think that we can agree on, regardless of what areas we may or may not be more keen to be looking at. So another solid day in the market. That's a nice close. Like I said, I don't think we should go crazy, but I do think we should call it a bullish signal, closing above 26, closing on the S&P, closing above the 50 on the NASDAQ, 24,000 on the Dow Jones. I don't think we have those signals just yet on the Russell, but I do think we can call it just another bullish signal. I personally really do. And that will be how I will go forward throughout the rest of the week. So a solid day, not nearly as boring as the last couple of days. I was so waiting for it to sell off at the end of the day and close right below 26. That's what I was assuming it was going to do. Over in the dollar, we did have a nice strong day going on in the dollar, working back into that old floor range, into those falling moving averages after the Brexit vote. We're shot down again. We did see it sell off pretty substantially. I still don't love this from a bull. I think it has to cleanly be above 96 for me before I'm going back into neutral, maybe towards the bullish side. I would still call myself neutral towards the bearish side in the dollar as long as we are below 96. But we did see some serious price action off of that vote, right? Zoom. So the market was not on board with that, for better or worse. No doubt about it. Over in gold, another sideways day, but on our metals, we're starting to see some very, very clean developing intraday floors. Here on the 15-minute chart, you can see that we're really, worked back into that 1287 range here on gold. Maybe we'll go into an hourly to make it a little cleaner. Again, me, I don't do straight lines. Let's straighten that one out at least a little bit. So we are developing a pretty good floor on the intraday over on gold. I still think 13 is going to be the signal to be looking for, but where we've kind of been talking about price action, it's been, down at 1280, and it still is in my opinion, but I think we can start to incorporate that 1287, 1288 as a little bit of an intraday floor that we could, at least if we're working on shorter term timeframes, be looking at if we are looking for bullish opportunities and even bearish opportunities. While I wouldn't do this personally, if we take out this floor, probably not unlikely to work back to this one, right? We see that happen fairly regularly where we build floors, and if they give out, works towards the next one, right? So definitely some interesting price action over there. Longer term, not a whole lot has changed. Of course, at least in my mind, on gold, 13 above 13 is the, really the signal I think that we, are waiting to see as a group of traders. But really, any good opportunities that fit your trading rules above 1260, like I've said many times before, I'm okay with gold from a bullish perspective, and from that point of view. We're seeing the same little floor developing over on silver as well. Silver's got a really interesting pattern where we've established that intraday floor, several tests on the intraday, got a little bit of a wedge developing here. If we can take this out, probably the first step towards working back towards that $16 mark. So on our metals in particular, we're definitely seeing some intraday floors develop that we can kind of be keeping an eye on. If, again, not everyone's going to use those time frames, and I certainly understand that, and I never want anybody to do something they're not comfortable with. But if you are, do follow the shorter term time frames over in the commodities market, I think you'll probably agree those floors are definitely starting to develop and might be something that we can keep an eye on. Over in natural gas, worked into that old breakout point. That was kind of an easy call, I think, not a tradable call, but, work into that, going to act as some resistance. We did sell off of it. Maybe we can work within this range for a little bit. Again, these guys have just been very difficult for swing traders, and I know I'm not alone to trade. We've all complained a little bit about it from time to time. It's still very volatile. This range that we're kind of dealing with, though, is a sensible range. An old breakout point, an old resistance level. If we can, and this is a big if, right? We all know natural gas now. And good afternoon, Shirley. Hope you're doing well and hope you had a great day. If, and I'm not going to hold my breath, I wouldn't either if I were you guys, but if we can work into this range and spend a little bit of time here, maybe something can develop for us. I do think, we can kind of look at, yet the bottom of yesterday's candle as our current support level. And I do think anything above, basically today's high could be interpreted as another buy signal. I just wouldn't take it if that's the way it wants to play out, at least this week. Right. And again, whatever its next move is, it's almost certain that it's going to do it without me. So good luck to anybody who is trading over in the natural gas market. One of these days, we're going to get a nice clean signal and it's going to be all worth the wait. But it's not going to be tomorrow for me. No doubt. And over in crude, nice little bounce back day. Let's come in and take a look at it on the intraday as well. Will an hourly work for us? So we did kind of establish that break in the last couple of days, but then we kind of double bottomed here and have broke back to the upside. Right now, the bulls have taken back that short-term momentum, much like the other coaches here and many of you guys that I've talked to individually in one shape or form or another. Really, I think the signal is going to be breaking back above here in the mid-high 54s. We'll call it $55 or the 50. But seeing that upward movement off of the 50 is, again, I'm not comfortable, jumping in right here because where's the risk to reward? I think you have to be out at 55. Best case scenario, risking a couple dollars to get 3 on on crude that can really move. I don't really think there's a great swing there right now, but that can change, especially with the way it's developed. If this does work back up to and through that resistance level, we will have seen that it broke out. We'll have seen that it had come back and tested the breakout point as a support level. And of course, by virtue of breaking that resistance, showing the upward movement off of that, right? And same thing, if it breaks 50, it will look like a failed breakout, right? It worked out, pulled back, tried again, and then broke. So really, I think we just still have to be patient on crude at that 50 and 55 range. I think we're going to get good tradable signals. Intraday wise, I think you can play, off of some of the prices that it's working with, but swing wise, for me at least, much like a lot of other traders I've talked to, it's approximately, 50 and 55. The break either way, I think would be a tradable signal. And we'll just see when that wants to happen. I can't want to buy this, even though I kind of want to, if that makes any sense at all. But I think you just wait. 50, 55 will be the numbers I continue to be looking at. So definitely seeing some movement, some nice little intraday floors developing in the metals market, seeing some movement in some of our indexes. It was kind of nice to see that not everything broke out today. Right? I complain a lot about the all or nothing market where everything's always doing the same exact thing. But we had areas like industrials and energy that really didn't do anything wrong. They just didn't break out with the market. That doesn't mean if the market continues to, push to the bullish side that they can't and won't. So maybe we'll get some opportunities to work into different sectors and different time frames instead of, well, everything's showing a buy or sell signal. What's your favorite sector, right? I'm not unhappy to see that type of a market go away personally. I don't love the all or nothing markets. I like it a lot better when these sectors are bullish, these sectors are bearish, and these sectors are sideways, or I don't have any opinion on. That's always my favorite type of a market. So, but again, one day. But I do think we have to look at it for the most part from the stock market point of view as another set of bullish signals. How bullish is going to be up to us, right? I'm not ready to go crazy or anything like that, but breaking 26 in the S&P, 24,000 in the Dow, and of course closing above the 50 in the NASDAQ. Yeah. I mean, and I know you joined us, at least it looked like you joined us a little bit late, Shirley, but yeah, breaking above that 50 on the NASDAQ, and of course we were seeing that over on the Qs as well. There is some room. There really is some room to work. Now, again, I'm not ready to go crazy, but I am definitely calling that a bullish signal myself. Surely, I would be watching, if I'm looking at the Qs, I'll be kind of watching it as it approaches, probably into the 170 range. And again, let's poke our nose here at the NASDAQ really quick because we've seen some price action at that 68 support level that we kind of watched, or I'm sorry, 69 support level that we saw, back in the day when we were breaking to the downside. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing that's kind of developed over the last little while, in my opinion, Shirley, in a lot of these areas, while there are potential challenges and different levels of resistance and moving averages and stuff like that they have to fight through, there's room to the upside too. If we are going to continue to see upward movement, there is room to the upside in a lot of these different areas before they're challenging, major levels of resistance. So it should be a fun rest of the week, no doubt about that. I'll be, of course, doing what I think we should all be doing, having plans for bull plays and for bear plays, making sure I'm not getting too crazy one way or the other, right? Not going to retire off of, if this is a great buy signal, it's not going to change my life if I don't go all in, right? But it might change my life to the downside if I do go all in and I'm wrong. So, I'll continue to work through both bullish and bearish trade setups. I mean, they're still out there. We saw that, Goodyear Tire, selling into a significant support level. There are other, stocks challenging support. We still have lots of earnings. And that's one thing that, I think we want to keep in mind as we work through the month, regardless of what kind of signals that we're getting. We've got so many earnings, and eyes are going to be on, how that's, what that's going to all mean, right? I don't know what the reports are going to do. I don't know what it means in the long term, but traders are going to try to interpret that. So we're going to have a lot of earnings between here and the end of the month that can throw some wrenches in our charts, right? No doubt about it, one way or the other. But again, we're seeing some signals today that, maybe, well, I'll be honest, 2 weeks ago, I didn't think we were going to, work right back into 2600 and break through it on the S&P. After on Christmas Eve, I didn't think, that was going to be where I was going to be hanging out on the 15th of January. So you never know how it's going to be. Make sure you are staying on top of those earnings for your trades. Obviously, they can and oftentimes do have a significant impact on the price action of the individual stock. We'll see what those big financials do here tomorrow as we move into the rest of the week. It's not a huge week. Like I said, there's about 40 S&P companies. I don't think quite 40, coming out this week. Next week's when we're really going to start getting hit with, huge numbers of big name earnings reports, but lots of financials this week. And it's been a mixed bag. You've seen, earnings beats, but revenue misses and things like that in the financials and in the couple that have come out. So we'll see where the rest of these guys take us. Really quick, Shirley brings up Microsoft. Taking earnings out of the equation, Shirley, I thought that this was an interesting potential development where, much like the overall market, we're able to put together that higher low and that higher high, pull back again and see some nice upward movement here today. I would definitely say that if we break, I would say this is on the buy side of things right now. We kind of took out, well, I was going to try to be way too sneaky on a line draw. Not going to happen. I think probably from a bullish point of view, I would want to see it get up. Now, if I were able to, and I'm not, but if I were able to get in this morning off of this pullback. In theory, I wish I would have done that. I would, be happy to stick around. Thinking about, things new, I would want to see it take out that 50-period moving average just because it's there. I don't know that it's a brick wall. And again, no one will ever accuse me of being the boldest guy out there, but I would want to see it break through that. Beyond that, there's room. And I do like Microsoft, as a company myself. We do have some room to go. So I really like this chart and charts that are going to look like this over in the tech sector. If we're able to carry this bullish momentum, if the NASDAQ's able to continue to push forward, because there's room. I mean, when we look at the Microsoft chart, I mean, the first thing that jumps out to me is, where's the next level of resistance? Up at 112 is where I would call it, 111, 112. Yeah, I think we have to respect this average, and we are kind of at a floor-ish range, right? It was messy, but we've seen some price action off of about where we closed here today. But if we were to take out that 50, we could say that it's behind us, right, from a bullish point of view. But where's the next real level of resistance? And there really isn't anything, right? That's one reason why I do like, some tech stocks. If we continue to see some bullish movement, there's room for them to run. Whether or not it would run up to, 110, 111, 112, I don't know. But just looking at his chart, where's the next challenge? If we can win this fight here that we're dealing with, where's the next one? And I just personally, I can't see anything until we work into those old highs, which is quite a bit, which means it doesn't have to get anywhere near there, right, for a good trading opportunity to develop. So overall, I agree with your take, Shirley. I would want to see it kind of break through that 50 moving average. We've seen the price action here. We know that, the 50 can act as resistance, a resistance level. I don't know that it will in this case by any means, but I know that it can. And when I just think about, what do I get if I wait for it to break above that 50? Well, I get the confirmation of not having to worry about the 50 being resistance. I get a little more confirmation that, we're above this little floor, that maybe I was looking too close to down here, and maybe I should have been looking here. So I think, for me at least, little upward movement would make me feel a lot better if I weren't in it. If I were in it, I would be keeping an eye on this price, no doubt about it, but I probably would be comfortable not leaving either if I were in Microsoft. I'm not, so it's, we'll never know for sure, but that's how I think I would look at it right now. But a really interesting chart. It's definitely some things that I like it, and again, it's the space. If we can, break through these things, that's what I'm always going to be looking for as I'm trying to decide who I want to work with versus who I don't. I'm going to see signals all the time on both sides, right? Always want to find the ones that have the easiest path or the best risk to reward, or ideally both, right? As I'm kind of debating between who to work with. So thanks for sharing, Shirley. Always enjoy looking at stock charts. Never really get tired of it. Should be an interesting rest of the week. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I guess I better let you get out of here, and that'll do it for the market recap today. But certainly, as always, guys, it is my pleasure. It's great to see you, and I do appreciate everybody's time. It's always fun to hang out, talk trading with you guys, and I hope you enjoy it as well. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell if you're new around here. Always happy to have more members over here at Team Tackle, and be sure to follow us over at Tackle Trading on Twitter. For anybody who hasn't, I'm putting together a list of our Team Tackle members over on Twitter. I'll bring it up, in our halftime report or wherever you see me. But if you want to get on that list, you can always let us know at Team at Tackle Trading, or you can let me know at Frank Martin 23 on Twitter as well. I'm looking forward to being able to keep tabs on you guys and share what you're doing as well. I'm just figuring out the Twitter thing. It's going all right. So not my normal thing to do, but I'm getting more comfortable with it. As always, thank you, Diago. Always great to see you too, my friend. Always enjoy hanging out with you guys. If you like the market recap, be sure to hit that like button just to let us know we're on the right track, and let YouTube know that we're on the right track as well. They seem to like that. With that, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to kind of stay on top of those earnings. I know that you don't have to dive deep if you're not trading those stocks, but just kind of see how those big banks are responding tomorrow to those reports. Should be interesting. We'll see where it is tomorrow afternoon when we get back together. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for your time. Happy trading, and I will see you all tomorrow.